So now that we've connected our Spring Boot application to the PostgreSQL database, it's time to create our first entity, or our first entity that's going to be our first table for the DB. And how I'm going to start this, so I'm going to go here in the main package and I'm going to create another package that's going to be named persistence. And in this package, I'm going to create another package that I'm going to name entity. And in this package, I'm going to add our first entity, which is going to be a product. And let's just name it product entity in this case. I'm just going to say product entity. Okay. And now this is just a Java class. In order to turn it into an actual entity, we need to add the annotation entity. And just like that, we have we have turned this class into an entity. Now, every entity would need to have an ID, or the primary key in this case. So that's why I'm gonna add an annotation ID, and this is gonna be private long ID. This is gonna be a generated value, strategy, generation type, identity. So what this is gonna do, this is gonna, with the ID annotation, we're specifying that this is gonna be the primary key of this entity, and we're saying that there's gonna be a generated value out of type identity. So that's gonna that's gonna be auto-generated, and it's gonna be incrementing. It's gonna be starting and incrementing with each entity that we save to the DB. This signifies that this is gonna be the entity, and now we can also name our table. So right here with this annotation, we can specify how we want the table to be named in the DB. Let's name it as a product. So as you can see, we've named it as a product. Product, that's going to be the name of the table. You have to specify that you want to have the table name as product, and we have an ID. Now let's add the other fields. The second field that we're gonna have is gonna be the name, and the third field is gonna be the description. But not like that. That's gonna be out of type string, and it's gonna be description. So now that we've added those fields in the product entity that's gonna represent our product, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm also gonna have to add some couple of constructors here. So you wanna have an all args constructor, we can have a no args constructor, and we can have getters and setters for the entity. And getters and setters for the entity. And we can, and in this case, we can use, basically this entity is gonna get read by Spring Boot when we restart the application, and it's gonna start up the application, and it's gonna go connect to the DB, and it's gonna create the product table. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go ahead and restart the table, and you're gonna see how that's gonna happen right now. So it's gonna connect to the DB. It's gonna connect to the DB. It did connect to the DB, and as you can see right here in the console, so right here in the console of the application, because we selected previously, so previously when we were connecting, we said that we want to show the SQL. So basically, Hibernate created an SQL query, a create table product. The product is the name that we specified right here in the entity. So that's why the table name is going to be product. It created an ID that's going to be the primary key. So that's specified right here, and it created a description out of type string and a name out of type string. So those properties. And now if we go to dbeaver, so now if I go to dbeaver and if I refresh, so if I go ahead and refresh the public schema, you can see that we now actually have a table, and that table is product. And you can see it has 3 columns, but as you can see, I did miss, actually no, it just didn't show it up, but the name of the column is actually description. So there's the ID, which is the primary key, this is description, and this is name. So we successfully created our first entity that also was created in the DB, and now we can use this entity. But in order to use this entity, we would need a repository, and in the next video we're gonna show how can we use a JPA repository to work with our entities. But that's gonna be it for this video.